Okay. I know everybody has some crappy jobs in their past life that they don't want to revisit or that they talk about all the time. But I want to tell you a story, and it's about my life and my job that I had. And I just read the article on Tony Hseih that he sold his Zappos company to Amazon for $1.2 billion. Well, I want to say to Tony Hseih and everybody else in the world, the Amazon is horrible. And the reason being is I personally worked in a Lexington, Kentucky warehouse over 5 years ago, and I just worked there for 9 months as a temporary, was hired on 8 or 9 months, was hired on full time in March of the following year. And everything was going okay, but I tell you what, my boss was very nice. She was great, but she had to have certain numbers output each day. And it was a packing job where you would pick the books off the shelves and you would take them over to the people that were supposed to package up the books and ship them off. Well, I worked there for several months, and then there was an auditor position that was opening. Well, I could see the writing on the wall. They were starting to make them pack or pick up to 1,200 books a day, 1,200 to 1,600 books a day. And there were people that were at the bottom of the shelf, so to speak, that weren't picking enough books, that they were picking the list that they were next in line for instead of picking the list that had multiples on it, like such as a new release of Batman Returns came out. You could pick 24 of those because they were going to be shipped out on the same day because that was the first day that they were allowed to be shipped because there's regulations. Well, anyhow, um, I obviously went to apply for the auditor's position. I got the auditor's position. They told me that it was permanent, that I was part of that position, and that there were four other people that were hired along with me. Now, what happened was is I got pregnant after I was working in that position for 2 months. And after 2 more months, I decided to let my boss know. Well, my boss told the human resources person that I was pregnant and that the human resources lady, her name was Janet, and she said that I had to have a doctor's note. Well, I procured a doctor's note for her, and at the same point in time, I noticed that all the temporaries were getting laid off. In fact, one lady had a heart attack because it was 105 degrees inside the warehouse. And since she was temporary, she was only allowed 1 point before she would be fired. Well, she had a heart attack at 11 o'clock in the morning, okay? And we weren't supposed to get off until 6 because it was a 7 a.m. to 6 shift. For some, no, it was 6 a.m. to 6 shift. And she was fired. She was not allowed to come back to the warehouse at any point in time for any reason. There was security, and the security had been notified that she couldn't even return to work the following day. Obviously, she wouldn't want to return to work the following day, but the temporary agency told me that she was no longer available. I kind of liked her. Well, also, I had another friend. He had a brace, a physical brace that everybody could see, broad daylight, had to be checked over every morning by the security guards to see if, and every night to see if he had stuck something in his pants, stuck something behind his brace, something like that, because he set off the alarms all the time. Well, Janet told him that he had to have a doctor's note as well and that he had a week to do it. Well, guess what? He disappeared after the week. Well, I'm pregnant and I'm seeing the signs on the walls. I'm wanting to quit. And my husband says, no, you can't quit because we need the money because we're going to have a baby soon. So I'm sitting there working. I'm absolutely exhausted. Sure enough, one morning, my husband is taking me to work because I'm too tired because these are 12-hour shifts. And then a drunk driver hits us in the back. Okay? And he takes off running. Okay? Well, I didn't show up at work that day, so I got a point deducted off of me. My back was hurting, but my doctor wouldn't touch me because I was pregnant, and they were afraid that if they would do anything, it would cause me to pop out the kid at 3 months pregnant. So I procured a doctor's note saying that I had to stay on a chair. They said that the auditor position required me moving around and that I would have to go to the receiving area. Well, the receiving area was the highest rate of turnover in the whole entire building. Okay? It's where UPS trucks come in and dump off their books, and then you have to receive them. You've got a scan gun and you check them in. So here I am being demoted to auditor from auditor position to a basic receiving position. I'm making $9.85 an hour. Well, gosh, they want to do cutbacks. And guess what? Shauna's pregnant and she's not making her numbers because her back freaking hurts and she's pregnant. Okay, well, that's a disability. Guess what? Shauna, we noticed that you were dozing off while you were sitting in your 2.5-foot stool. And you were just sitting there falling asleep. Well, crap. I'm not falling asleep. I'm exhausted. I'm sitting here doing this number. I'm not falling asleep or I'll fall out of the stool. So she pulls me into her office. She goes, I noticed that your boss said that you were falling asleep. Here I am, 3.5 months, 4 months pregnant. No, 3.5 months pregnant. And I'm starting the show. And I said, I'm not dozing. I'm exhausted. And if I fall asleep, it wouldn't be because I'm standing in a chair. I just puked that morning. Okay? They didn't like the idea of me running off to the bathroom 4 times a day in a 12-hour shift, mind you. Okay? And 2 out of the 12 hour or 2 out of the 4 times was when I was actually puking my guts out. Okay? Because I'm sitting here pregnant in a 95 to 105 degree temperature building with just fans blowing on us, no air conditioning, no nothing. The conditions are horrible. During the winter, you freeze your butt off because it's 60 degrees inside the warehouse. You're wearing coats. But anyhow, I get in there and she goes, well, I said, I don't think this is right. Here I am, barely able to breathe. I just puked a half an hour ago, and I said, I'm really tired, but if I go home, you're going to count a point against me. And she goes, well, how about I just, what was it? She said something else, and she didn't want to make any accommodations for me. She didn't like the idea that I had a doctor's note so I could sit in the chair, that I was supposed to stand up for 12 hours a day just like everybody else. You know, I was a book picker that was walking 10 to 12 miles a day because I was picking all these books, okay, over 1,500 books a day, to sitting in receiving because I'm pregnant and I'm exhausted and I can't breathe. And I started telling her, exactly how I felt about the situation, and I wasn't getting mad or anything, but afterwards I was mad because she said, Shauna, if you get up from that chair right now, I said, I'm going to go back to work now. She goes, if you get back up from that chair right now, you're fired. So I sat down And she did this stupid little evaluation on me, and she said that I wasn't making my numbers. And guess what? I was fired. Isn't that crappy? So, FYI, people, nobody buy anything from Amazon because they're horrible and they don't care about their people. And guess what? There was a lady in Texas that lost her child at 4.5 months pregnant because of the conditions in the warehouse and that they weren't making accommodations for her either. And guess what? She shoes the crap out of them. And then she had made it within the insurance policy that they had, which was uh, Cigna or Aetna, that from now on, all the children that were under this health insurance plan had to be covered, and I paid $350, but my Cobra was 600 and something because I had a pre-existing condition. I couldn't get back on my husband's insurance policy. Isn't that crappy?